evening and welcome to the second episode of First Time Home Buyers Show. I am your host, Nobuhle Mahlasela, and I'll be holding the fort for Nicolette until she returns. So tonight's show, we are going to be exploring the role and benefits of using real estate agents as a first-time home buyer. And I'm sure, as you guys know, I am the guest host for tonight, and I have a special speaker. His name is Barry from Chess Everett. I want to tell you a bit more about Barry. Barry Everett is known as the leader both locally and internationally in the real estate circles. He became the MD of his family's real estate business in 1998 and has since built it into one of the top 4 real estate companies in SA, an acknowledged technology leader in the industry. In 2015, the group became an affiliate of leading real estate companies of the world and its luxury chapter, Luxury Portfolio International. Barry won the leading President's Choice Award, and in 2018, he was honored as the leading REIT Top International Ambassador. Barry is well known for his realistic but always optimistic insights into the residential property sector. He played a leading role in this year's property industry group, which successfully lobbied the government to reopen real estate. So I had a chat with our special guest earlier, and he is a very charming man, and I'm very, very, very confident that he is going to lead us through this process with ease. So everybody, please welcome Barry Everett. Hello, Barry.
Hi, Nobuhle. Lovely to be on your show. Thank you very much. And I look forward to having a good evening with you, with your audience today.
Thank you for accepting our invite to be on the show. So today's a Friday, and usually with Fridays, we all know it's the weekend, right? We all get pumped up for the weekend, but we are still under lockdown, even though we are in level 2. So what does, how has your life changed since the pandemic in terms of obviously getting out and being out there? How has your life changed?
Okay, so for me, you know, our company has digitized its services over the last 2 years. So a lot of our agents are used to using technology. So as soon as we had the shutdown, we moved straight onto these kind of platforms. But it's always nice to get out. And I think the first person I saw outside of my house was a very special person, and I grabbed them and I hugged them and I didn't let them go for at least 20 seconds. So you know what that's like, one of those long hugs. So that's what it was like for me. First thing, and it's nice. I'm quite a homebody, and I like doing stuff around the home and spend time with my kids. So we have quality time here at home. So I've tried to be responsible. Our company is very responsible in terms of the guidelines that the government's given us. So we've maintained all the social distancing and masks and all the hygiene factors. So minimum people working from office. And I haven't really been out a lot, to be honest. You know, I've learned to cook a lot better. And so that kind of stuff, we've taken more time and spent more time there, but not really too much out and about at the moment.
That's good to hear. This is our new norm after all. So Barry, without any further ado, I'd like to, for us to get into the discussion, right? So our show is about first-time home buyers. And I want us to discuss a few pointers. The first one, obviously, for first-time home buyers at the moment is, what is the current market? What does it look like at the moment?
Well, the current market is absolutely incredible. You know, markets are what they are. Normally it's a buyer's market, or normally it's a seller's market, or it's moving in between. Yes. So up until lockdown, it was more of a buyer's market. And once we were able to trade, there was a pent-up demand from the 1st of June, and we were able to show people the homes they would want to buy, and the property activity has been amazing. Lots and lots of inquiries from buyers below 2 million rand, between 800 and 1.5, extremely active and very, very buoyant at the moment. So it's shifted now as we see the stock starting to absorb. So more stock starting to be taken up, and properties on the market for very short periods of time. So buyers shouldn't be sitting on the fence waiting. They should get out there and make their choices and follow the guidelines of the estate agents that they work with.
So it would be a good time to buy right now, you would say?
Exactly. Well, I was telling them, I was telling buyers to buy before, because, you know, buyers shouldn't sit on the fence and try to time the market. At the moment, there's competition to buy that same house. Sometimes a number of buyers on going for one house and maybe 3 offer to purchases and maybe 59 inquiries on one property. So, you know, at the right price range, if it's priced right, lots of competition. So I think it's going to start shifting a little bit towards the seller's market, and there's a reason for that. The interest rates have been the lowest at what they've been in 30 years. Reserve Bank cut interest rates quite severely by 2.75% since January. What that means is a person who was paying a mortgage bond of R1 million in January versus a person paying that mortgage today is paying 1,700 Rand less for that same mortgage on that same property. So the affordability is more rife, and people think, well, if I've been renting, why don't I go out and buy a house? And because transfer duty there's no transfer duty for properties below R1 million, that particular sector is quite aggressive at the moment.
That's good to know. So now I am a buyer and I've decided that I want to buy my first home, right?
Sure.
So what is the importance of using a real estate agent in helping you buy your first home as opposed to not using one?
Yeah, if you're going to go, I'm going to illustrate it like this. It's a very complicated process to buy a home. It seems like you may just go fill in a piece of paper and buy a home. There's financial requirements, there's costs. There's costs other than the costs that get for the cost of the bond to be registered in your name, the transfer duty, the attorney's costs, the bond attorney's costs. There's municipal costs that could come. You might want to know, there might be levies available that you might not know of. You might want to know, are pets allowed? Are they not allowed? You can't just assume that they are. And that can create a lot of unhappiness. And estate agents are there, they're properly trained. If they're with a company like ours, which is both local and global, and has local expertise and global reach, those kind of companies have very well trained agents. We, for example, have an online academy. We train our agents all the time, and then they have to be registered with the Estate Agents Affairs Board. So agents that have an NQF4 qualification or 5 qualification have been well trained and will be able to advise the buyers correctly, and buyers won't be just dumping in. It's almost like you wouldn't go and try to take your own heart out and replace it. You go to a surgeon, similar kind of thing.
Well, with that being said, Barry, you mentioned that it is important for a real estate agent to be registered. How do you verify? I mean, I can meet a John saying they are a real estate agent. I mean, with Chess Everett, we know the years of your experience in the industry speak for themselves. But nowadays, everybody is coming up and trying to build themselves up in different careers. As a first-time home buyer, how do you know? How can you check that a real estate agent is registered?
It's a very, very good question. You should ask that estate agent to show you their Fidelity Fund certificate that's been issued by the Estate Agents Affairs Board. That means that agent is entitled to trade as an estate agent. Every single year, the Estate Agents Affairs Board reissues that certificate based on certain compliance and government issues. So it should be registered, it should be valid for the year that you apply. It's no use asking somebody and they show you one for 2019, there should be one for 2020, one for 2021, and there's a specific number, so like an ID number, but on that certificate. And you can also check on the Estate Agents Affairs Board's website, but the Estate Agents Affairs Board's website and some of they have some backlog, so rather ask for a certificate.
Yeah, that's very insightful, and thank you, because most of the time we just as first-time home buyers we don't really know what to look out for, the questions to ask, and those kind of things. So that is a very, very good answer. Thank you so much. I just want to let our viewers and listeners know that they can ask us questions, and we can answer them later or comment on a subject. The other thing that I wanted to ask you, the protection that is offered to home buyers who use estate agents, like it feels like a safety net, but can you elaborate more as to what the protection is that is offered to a first-time home buyer?
Okay, well, firstly, the obvious is you're dealing with somebody that's properly trained, that has been in the market, that understands financing capabilities, that understands the costs relating to purchase, understands the rights relating to that purchase,
Yes.
understands how to complete the contracts. They've got those kind of skills. So that's the basic knowledge information. But the real thing is the Estate Agents Affairs Board is a consumer body that's there to protect the consumer, and agents have to be registered in terms of the Act. And in order to be registered, you get that Fidelity Fund certificate that I mentioned. That Fidelity Fund certificate is made up of your registration plus the qualification which allows you to operate. But the money we pay each year goes into what is called the Fidelity Fund, which has a lot of money in it, which is there to protect the consumer. If an estate agent defrauds that consumer, or if so the protector looks after the clients to ensure that the agent complies. And if something happens and so one of those estate agents disappear with money or something like that, and there's a claim against the Fidelity Fund, that Fidelity Fund will return that money. So those are the protections, and also the protections in terms of the behavior and the codes that the agents have to operate under to ensure that the consumer is protected.
Wow, that's amazing. That honestly feels like it's somewhere that you know that you are protected as a consumer and as a first-time home buyer. Fantastic.
And all buyers, eh? It's all buyers, not only first-time home buyers, all buyers will be protected. But
generally, yes. Okay, that's fantastic. So we're gonna be headed for a quick break, so we'll get back to our second segment. If you just joined us, please grab a glass of water and we'll be back soon. Welcome back to our second part of the show, the first time home buyers show, and I am your host, Nobuhle Mahlasela. I am still joined by Barry Everett from Chess Everett. So as we were talking earlier about buyers and first-time home buyers, we would like to find out from our viewers and our listeners, what questions do you have as a buyer and as a first-time home buyer for a real estate agent?
Okay, do you want me to elaborate in terms of the kind of questions they ask, or what would you like to ask me, Nobuhle?
Elaborate what questions a first-time home buyer should ask an agent.
Okay, all right.
Before they can go with one.
Yeah. Any single question that they want to ask, they can ask. So the basic questions would be, what's it going to cost me to buy this house? Outside of the purchase price. Any single question that they can think of. when can I move in if I buy the house? How do I apply for my mortgage? What's that mortgage going to cost every single month? How much, which originator should you use? And that's a good question, because when people buy a house, they tend to go to their bank for a mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
But there are a whole bunch of banks that would love to have that client's mortgage, where a mortgage originator works for the buyer and would go out and compare the various banks against their own bank, so that they'd be able to get a lower interest rates, which obviously plays in the favor of the buyer. So, estate agents are in touch with that entire ecosystem. They know what the costs are, which banks are lending what at what particular time, who would be best to help them with that application, any legal questions that they may want to ask.
Yeah.
There are no silly questions, as we were taught at school and at university. Ask the questions, and irrespective of what that question may be, the estate agent should be able to answer that for you.
Well, that's very good to know. So one can say that a real estate agent is almost like your BFF when it comes to buying a house, your best friend, because that's the person.
So, when you're working with a reputable large company like our company, our culture is very family orientated, although we're a massive company, and we work with a lot of agents and do a lot of buyers transactions right across the luxury side and the first time home buyer side and the everyday properties as well, of all types. The important thing to understand, I think, is what is it that a buyer is actually looking for, and to package something that suits that buyer for that particular buyer, always knowing that that buyer has choice. An estate agent is not a salesperson. That's what people must understand. An estate agent is a person that can guide that buyer through the process. And you must feel comfortable with that person that you're dealing with. For example, our company is not transaction based, so it's not just about making a sale and moving like we're selling you shoes. We would want to work with you and your family and have a relationship with you long term and become your estate agent of choice. And I think many good companies that work over a long period of time that have been successful will know relationships important. So that's something that we would like to try and make sure that buyers get to understand, because it should, even though it's a scary process, it shouldn't be scary if you're working with a professional who's going to hold your hand through the process like we will.
That's very nice to know, Barry, that it's more of a relationship thing more than just selling you this pair of shoes and moving right along. You build a relationship and you make the buyer feel comfortable and as part of the family as possible. Thank you so much. The other thing that I wanted to ask you, Barry, is what advice do you have for any first-time home buyers or any buyers generally about purchasing their first property?
I would say the first thing you would want to do is you would want to find an estate agent, firstly, that you're comfortable with. Once you've elected the area that you want to look in, a good idea for it to know if you're working with a good estate agent is when you're working with friends that have bought from an estate agent that they could refer you to, because some estate agents may not have delivered nice experiences and you might come across them. So you want to work with somebody that can be maybe referred to you from a friend that's dealt with them and they found them to be very reliable and friendly, and somebody who vibes with you, basically. If you were to contact our company, you would find somebody that would fit with you, that you'd be comfortable with, and that's really where the relationship's going to start. So I don't think a property agents should be stuck in one particular area, because if you have a relationship, there's no boundaries, and a lot of the older traditional companies haven't changed. They just work in their little street squares, and it's all in a box. I think it's all about the consumer, and the company must be consumer facing and the consumer must be comfortable. Once you're comfortable, stick with that agent, and that agent will look after you. If they don't, find one that does, and we certainly will be happy to, Chaz Everett will certainly be happy to work with any buyers that come our way.
That's very nice to know, because earlier when we spoke, you had mentioned that we are all humans after all on this earth, and we are here to help each other out and better each other. So I have a question from one of our listeners. Her name is Mahomo Maeba. She's asking, is this the right time to buy property?
You know, there's no better time than right now. Interest rates, as I said, are the lowest in 30 years. Homes are still quite affordable because the economy wasn't that great, and people were uncertain about the socioeconomic status of the. So property prices were low, and property prices, like anything else, goes through cycles. Now the interest rates are low. A lot of buyers climbing into the market now. So prices, if you create a demand and the supply decreases, prices normally go up. So absolutely, I would say we should have. It would have been better if you bought 2 months ago, but it's very good now.
Okay, I hope that Mahom is listening and she's heard the response. I have a question of my own. I want I know I touched on it briefly earlier when you and I spoke. When it comes to the financing side of things, would it be advisable for a first-time home buyer to have excess bond, or would you rather say that it's best that they pay off the property first? What would be your advice with that? Okay,
Nubuhle, what I'm going to do is just explain what you actually asked, what that product is. So if my memory serves me correctly, it was Standard Bank who brought out the access facility, and an access facility means so you borrow money to buy the house, that's your mortgage bond, and the security of that mortgage bond is the property that is the security, and you pay that property off, that loan off, so eventually you have no debt, and then the property is fully paid off. An access facility, as you're referring to, is a facility where, as you pay off the capital loan of the mortgage, which is a good thing to do, and to pay it off as quickly as you can. Normally mortgages are over 20 years. As you pay it off, you will pay off capital. If you have an access facility, you'll be able to access some of that loan, but the bank will decide together with you what amount you'll be able to access. So it is a good idea to do it. It gives you flexibility to be able to access money when you need it without necessarily asking for it. So if you bought a house for 800,000 Rand and you've paid off 400,000 Rand, and you need 100,000 Rand in an emergency to pay for a university fund, you could access that 100,000, and then you'd have to pay it back over time again. But it would be access, and it's something that you've paid off by particularly over this low interest rate period, for example.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Also, we know that buying your first time property or like moving into your first home, it's quite a nerve-wracking and exciting experiment, right? Because as a first-time home buyer, you're not sure really what you're getting yourself into. So what, from your side, from working from a real estate industry, what are the common mistakes that people make when they're buying their first homes?
Well, I think sometimes they just see a property, they like it, and they go buy it, and maybe they buy it directly from a seller who's offering it for private sale. But you have got no third party who's guiding you, looking at what's happening, and you don't even know perhaps if that person was for example, I was with somebody, I was absolutely shocked. Out towards Oranieville, one of the suburbs there, a couple of people have had RDP homes, and over the period they sold those RDP homes, or they bought those RDP homes, and 8 years later, and they paid cash for them. 8 years later, people have come back and said, "You're not the owner, I'm the owner." And because they never knew that you needed a conveyancing attorney to go to the deeds office and transfer it. So family members come back and it never got changed in the deeds office. So you want to work with a reputable agent. You want to have somebody who guides you through the process. And not only if you're a first-time home owner, every single time. because
Yeah.
you know when it's a big asset, it's probably one of the biggest investments you're going to ever make. So
In your
use a
life, yeah.
person, an expert who can make sure you know what you're buying, and you can
Yes.
ask all the questions and they're going to give you truthful answers. And at the
Yes.
same time, you know they're governed by a regulatory body that if they don't behave in accordance with consumer conduct that they want to, from a service and ethical point of view, you've got recourse. You don't have recourse against a seller if you deal directly with the seller and they move to England and they've taken your money and not delivered what you thought.
Okay, that's very insightful. Barry, just another question quickly. This is also just from me. Is it advisable to use your first-time home as an investment?
As an investment, let's first look at what an investment is. Every single property I have ever bought has been an investment, even the ones I haven't rented out. But it's not an investment like I'm taking money and I'm putting it in a unit trust and it has capital growth and or it fluctuates. When I'm using if I bought my first home, it's my roof, it's my shelter, and I'm paying it off, as opposed to paying off a tenant. Then there's an investment where I buy a property, I don't stay in that property, and I rent it out to somebody else that actually pays it off. Helps to pay off, and I just pay the difference. But the numbers have to work out, because you don't want to end up having to pay in a lot of money on an investment and you're not getting the use of it and it's maybe going in the wrong direction. So to be an investor, you need to understand your numbers, and I would certainly recommend that somebody must do a investment training course, and
yes.
I can help them with that. We've got we work very closely with schools and educators that work specifically with the investors and teach them how to invest. But yes, a first-time home could be an investment property too, if the numbers work.
Oh. So as you said earlier that on your website you do have information where you do training for people that want to be real estate agents and that sort of thing.
Yes. So we're growing our company all the time.
Yes.
Real estate, we've got an online training academy. We do all the compliance training. Plus we give skills training, psychological training, motivational training. Yes. Remember, we run a massive sales force, and we're part of leading real estate companies of the world. We're experts in the luxury market and the everyday property. So we train our agents and keep the sword sharp all the time. People who want to come into the industry, that got the right attitudes and energy are welcome to contact us. Yes.
That's very good to know. I've got another question from a viewer. He says he'd like to know if the bank would lock in buyers' interest rates at this time.
Yes, the bank will. They will lock in the interest rates, but remember, they don't lock them in at the lower rates. They normally build in a risk interest rate, so you'll probably get locked in at a higher rate than current. And I don't think with the way our economy is going, I don't see the Reserve Bank increasing interest rates. So we'll probably have it for a little longer. So it is a very good question, and it depends on and how you see the market. I see the market as having lower interest rates than what you're going to lock it in for the next 2 years at least.
Oh, that's good to know. Unfortunately, that's all the time I have for questions today. Everybody else, you can use the link on our social media pages to watch the podcast. Thank you so much, Barry, for joining me. And please, can you tell our viewers and our listeners where, give us your website, where they can find you on social media, and give us your website address, please.
So you can find me, you can look up Chaz Everett International Property Group. We're on all the social media pages. If you look for us, you'll find us. A lot of our offices have their own as well. Chaz Everett is a well-known brand. My name is Barry Everett. You can Google me. I'm all over the place. Any questions you may have, and our agents are there to serve the community that they work in. So any questions will be welcomed. and we're having inquiries. If you go on private property and you look up Chaz Everett, you'll find access to us on that wonderful portal as well, and you'll be able to contact any of our people or myself through that medium.
Perry, thank you so much for sharing your time with us and your expertise and knowledge. We really do appreciate it. Thank you very much. I am Nobuhle Mahlasela, and hope you enjoyed the show. Good evening.
Cheers.
Besides the beautiful beaches, sunny skies and how central everything is, what I really love about Umhlanga is the people. You can't help but become immersed in the culture, and you'll find people connecting in the most authentic spaces. It's just got this vibe to it. It's hard to think that only a few years ago, these business parks and homes were mostly sugarcane. The rate that this area has been developed at is truly mind-blowing. Especially with the fast pace of life these days, we really pride ourselves in being that bright spot in a person's day. You'll see everything from advocates and CEOs to creatives and students who pop into our spot for that short moment to escape. There's just so much life and energy in this area, and after a hectic week, there's nothing better than stopping in at Mount Edgecombe Country Club for a relaxed round of golf. The beauty and serenity that the estate offers really inspires me. There's honestly no place I'd rather live. That's my Umhlanga.